Good morning, everyone, or for those of you who are in Perth. We still have a couple of people joining us, but we'll get started with the webinar. My name is Peter McLaughlin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Broking at EBM, and I'd like to formally welcome you to our Cyber Awareness webinar this morning. Just a few housekeeping issues. As you're probably aware, these webinars work better if the participants don't mind muting their call and normally also not having their video on. We will be taking questions through the Zoom chat, and so if you'd like to push those questions through whenever you're ready, we will either respond to them during the presentation or at the end. We're also going to issue shortly after the webinar a Q&A plus copies of the slides, and they'll be sent through to you either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So if you miss any of the questions, we'll be responding to them via email as well. Before we start, I'd just like to take this opportunity to recognise that this month EBM has celebrated its 45th year of operation, and we're pretty proud of that. Born and bred Perth business, which now has offices in every state in Australia. Australian owned and operated, which is a bit of a new thing, or a unique thing these days. So we just wanted to recognise how proud we are of that milestone and formally thank our clients and supporters who have made this possible. That the team as a whole is very proud of it, and I'm sure our founder and current chairman Alan Bishop would probably say that during that 45 years, one of the things he's tried to do at all times is keep our clients aware of new and emerging risks and keep you at the forefront of how to manage, how to treat, and in some cases how to insure those risks. And cyber is no exception to that, and a terrific a modern day example, I suppose. In my mind, cyber is one of those things that will always apply to somebody else's industry until it doesn't. And we've got our industry's got an example of that. One of our competitors in the last couple of weeks, I understand, has had a fairly serious cyber breach. So it's coming home to us as an industry as well. On top of that, you would have seen all of the media reports of the amount of cyber activity that is current in the market, and then with the COVID situation, the numbers are something like an increase of 270% of cyber attacks during COVID. So this is one of the main reasons that we felt that this webinar, the topic of this webinar, should be cyber awareness, and how do we identify it, how do we avoid it, how do we treat it, and today we're fortunate we have Steve Simpson from ES2 and Phil Smith from Chubb Insurance to provide us with their contribution. Steve will give us a very good presentation in terms of what's involved with cyber, what do we need to be aware of, and how can we deal with it. Whereas Phil is going to give us some real life examples of claims and how those claims played out, which in my mind is always a terrific way to understand a risk and what's involved with it. So to kick things off, I'll hand over to Steve Simpson. He's the Chief Information Officer for ES2. I'll just read some of his background. It includes 22 years in the British Army as an IT specialist, manager and information security advisor in places like Northern Ireland, Bosnia and Afghanistan. He's also spent 2 years as cyber security advisor to the British Cabinet Office in Westminster. So I feel we've got somebody who's pretty well qualified to give us this awareness session. So I'll hand over to Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning for those who it is morning. Now, as Peter said, my name's Steve Simpson. I have been working in information security and cyber security approaching 40 years now, although I'm not sure I can really be that old. This year, though, as Peter says, this year we have seen a real increase in the targeting of COVID-specific attacks. And the attackers that we tolerate and try to defend against will always try and take any situation and make it profitable for them. Be under no misunderstanding, the attackers on the cyber side are running a business and they want money. They need to make money to keep going. Two very significant things that have happened this year from a government perspective is the release of the federal government's cybersecurity strategy for 2020 and the release of a new version of the OAIC, the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner's Notifiable Data Breach Report. Both of these reports are available for download and both are definitely worth a read. With the cybersecurity strategy, it was really good to see the government putting emphasis in protecting children in particular, empowering the police, empowering our cyber defenses. But of course, they also did their job and reminded us that as people in our own right and as companies, we have a responsibility to defend ourselves and to make sure that we are prepared for cyber attack. With the Notifiable Data Breach Report, one of the most significant things that I found within that report is the changes in the types of notification. Now, notifications are fairly average. We get around about 500 per half year. And these are just the security attacks where personally identifiable information has been breached. Public information has gone into the hands of an attacker, and we have had to notify the government. So under the Privacy Act, there is a notification amendment from 3 years ago now, and organisations that suffer a breach are mandated to report that breach to the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. So the number of notifications has stayed fairly consistent. The number of malicious attacks, though, has gone down a little with a corresponding increase in loss of information due to human error. When we're talking about human error, if you get a copy of this report, the human error component is broken down, which is quite useful for us. And as you might expect, an awful lot of the human error component revolves around email. Emails been sent to the wrong people, emails with the wrong attachment. And there is a call out on the misuse or abuse of BCC, which we commonly know as backstab carbon copy for a reason. BCC, if you're going to use BCC in your emails, use it carefully and use it for security reasons. Use it to hide who's receiving it. But be careful what you're sending out and know the content and who it's going to. Something that still amazes me is the fact that system faults and the actual IT are better than I always thought we were, and we are only responsible on average for between 5 to 7% of the security breaches that have occurred, which is a pretty good statistic. Now, Peter said in his introduction about us not understanding or not realizing that we are a target all the time. And please be under no misunderstanding here. Everybody is a target. You all have something that a cyber attacker wants, whether it's your access to your company email, your company systems and databases, or whether it's at home where you may be purchasing items online, where you have children who are online, and the information, personal information, is very, very valuable to these criminals, and they want to get this information from you. Obviously at work, we have the impact can be considerable to more people and even to other organizations. But at home, do not underestimate the impact of cyber attack on you and your family. Everyone within every organization has a responsibility to maintain information security. It is our responsibility to protect that information, the information that is owned by or that has been entrusted to your organization by your clients and customers, and they are entrusting their personal information to you. So we have an obligation to make sure that we maintain security of that information. Some of the information that the cyber criminals want to get from you include your login credentials. The most common attack right now is an email takeover attack, where a criminal will use phishing or another means of social engineering to try and get your username and your password. If they can get into that, then they can act as you when they are online. They can be reading all your emails without you knowing. You carry on your work as normal, but they're seeing everything. One of the common approaches these days is an attacker will come into your email. Once they've managed to get your username and your password, they will get into the email, they'll have a run through. Initially, they will do a search throughout the whole of your email inbox and outbox on the word password. They will try and find any emails that you've got that give passwords to other systems, for examples. They will, of course, look for credit card information and anything financial to try and bolster their own business that way. But they may also add rules to your inbox. And the most common rules, 2 simple rules: anything received to this account, anything transmitted from this account, copy to anonymous Hotmail account on the internet. That way they continue to monitor every email that you get. Even if you changed your password, they're still getting copies of every email until you notice that you've got rules in there. They may want client information. Again, personally identifiable information, very valuable to the cyber criminals. As an employee, you have an obligation to look after the information that your clients have passed to you. Contact information and financial information in particular, but anything about people is valuable to a cyber criminal. Identity hijacking or identity theft is something that we've come to know quite well, to be honest, through news articles and even through Hollywood these days. It is there. Is identity theft. Is it really theft if we are giving away this information? Always think, whenever you are typing personal information, your name, your email address, your phone number, somebody else's details, always think and make sure you're protecting that information. Financial information is, of course, one of the most valuable, and the criminals do, at the end of the day, want to make money. That is what they're after. And you are obligated by law to take particular care of tax records, tax file numbers, credit card numbers, but you need to make sure you're doing this for yourself as well. If you are doing online banking, make sure that you've signed up for multi-factor authentication. That will give an awful lot of protection to your financial information on your own. Extortion comes up quite often, and many of us have received emails, although we tend to hopefully we tend to ignore them. And there's an email approach known as sextortion. And emails will come in and they will have in the text or in the subject matter of the email, they will have one of the passwords that you've used in the past. Now, they've got this password because they bought it from a database on the dark net. And that will have occurred because of one of the large data breaches that have occurred in the last 5 years. 2 years ago, LinkedIn were breached and they lost 61 million usernames and passwords. Now, I still see people today who are using the same password for their office that they were using on LinkedIn 2 years ago. And that password is known to criminals. So you need to be careful. If they've got that, and if they've put that in an email and they've said, as you can see, we know your password, we've been monitoring your account, they haven't. Delete the email. Do not interact with it at all. Botnets are a little bit old hat now. Botnets are a virus that comes onto your computer, which is controlled by a bot herder, a central person on the internet who will gain access to and control your computer. They will then use your computer to amongst a lot of other computers to perform denial of service or other attacks against larger organizations. And of course, your web server is massively important to an attacker. They can get an awful lot of information if they can get access to your web server, or they can deface your web page and put disinformation so that your clients are not getting an accurate picture. Social engineering. We've already mentioned phishing. Social engineering is a massive means of an approach by cyber criminals. They may just want to steal a password or bank information. They may want to access your computer. They may want to access your building. And tailgating, following someone in, piggybacking into an organization is quite common. And it's something that we do as tests for organizations. We will try and piggyback in and see what we can find within an organization. If there's someone within your organization, someone within your working area that you don't recognize, don't be afraid to approach them. And if you are of a timid nature and you don't want to do it, speak to your line manager, speak to security, get somebody to approach them and find out who they are. Think about receiving phone calls as well. Not everybody is who they say they are. Phishing is the biggest approach, and I've already mentioned the term a number of times. Phishing with a PH is using email to try and get information from you. You are the catch, your information is the catch. And again, we can set up tests within an organization to find out how susceptible people are to phishing attacks. If you are suspicious about an email, do not interact with it. Other terms we use within this environment would be spear phishing. Spear phishing, you have probably seen where a phishing attack is targeted purely at your organization. And they could be looking at people at all levels within that organization. And whaling, of course, is fishing for the big fish. Whaling is the attacks that you've all heard of where the CFO receives an email that looks like it's come from the CEO or the COO telling them to pay something to this account urgently. Whaling. A lot of different threats. So I've seen organizations or known organizations all over the world that have fallen foul of social engineering threats. There was an organization here in Perth. It was quite a number of years ago now, but it's a lesson that's worth learning. These social engineers are as bold as brass, and they will look like they belong where they are. There was an organization in Perth, and someone came in, looked and acted every bit the IT team member. They had one of the trolleys that the IT team have. They went through the business and they picked up specific laptops, printers, screens from employees who had already left for the day, folded them up, put them neatly on the trolley, went out, never to be seen again. When CCTV was analysed, there was even an employee holding the door open to be helpful, to let them out. We have to be careful. Social engineers play on human nature. It is in our nature to help. If you consider someone who's on a reception desk or a help desk, their job is every bit to help people. And it's very difficult sometimes to not help, even when you have a little bit of suspicion. So keep your wits about you. USBs and hard drives left lying around, not as common an attack as it was 10 years ago, but it still happens. If you find a USB or a hard drive, do not use it. Hand it into the IT team. They can analyze it and they can find out if it was malicious. Phishing is another one of our wonderful terms in cyber, and this refers to using voice or telephone as the medium for social engineering. Phishing can be particularly effective when it is used in combination with phishing techniques. If you have already received a phone call and you've had a conversation with someone who said, oh, by the way, I'm going to send you an email in a little while, your mind is set ready to receive an email. And when you receive that email, you don't think twice about it. You drop your guard and you may well follow a link that you wouldn't under normal circumstances. So be aware that these attackers are as bold as brass, and they will They will use phone, they will use any technique that they have available to them. If you're looking at a typical phishing email, and these have evolved over the years, phishing emails, when you get an email, always have a look at the from address. Imagine it's from EBM Insurance. Look at it closely. Does it say 3BM Insurance? Does it say 3BM and then have a 1 instead of an I? These can be spoofed or faked very, very easily. We can buy, as an organization, as a person, you can buy a domain name. The most we have ever spent buying a domain name to create a fake web page and email setup would be about $35 for a year. We did one late last year as part of a demonstration on the Today Tonight show, and it cost us $7. This is easy. This is not a big player's game. Anybody can be setting these up. Graphics, it's so easy. Everyone's used the snipping tool in Windows. You can steal graphics and put them into an email to make it look genuine. We've all received emails and you can just make a cut and put it in there. We can make links look like pictures, pictures look like links. You have to be careful. In the example on the screen here, you can see what would show if we hovered our mouse over a link. It actually shows you again the link that you will go to if you click on that link. And if that looks suspicious, again, don't click on it. If there's an attachment and you weren't expecting an attachment, or it just looks a little bit suspicious, do not click on it. The scammers will try to feign a sense of urgency where they want you to respond to this email and they want to get you out of your comfort zone. So you will all at some stage have received an email that says, there's been some suspicious activity on your bank account. If you don't respond to confirm this activity within 24 hours, your account will be frozen. They're trying to take you out of your comfort zone. It's also very much a numbers game. So most of us on our home accounts more than at work will have received an email from Westpac. So half of us receive an email from Westpac. Probably only a third of those actually have a Westpac account. If you've not got a Westpac account, you automatically discount it, delete it. But if you do have a Westpac account, and even if it's only 5,000 out of the 100,000 emails they sent out, it only needs a few of those to click on that link and provide some information for it to have been worthwhile exercise for the criminal. So be careful. If you're on your Apple iPhone, again, it's absolutely fine to click on the from address. It will open another screen as shown here on the slide, and it will tell you exactly who it's from, what the email address is coming from. Do not try to do the same with links or attachments, though, not from a mobile device. If you are suspicious, leave it or don't forward them to your IT team for analysis. Attach them. So send them to your IT team as an attachment. That way they get all the header information that they can analyze forensically to find out where that email came from. If you have Android, it's exactly the same process. It's just that the screens look a little bit different. Again, you can click on who it's come from and it will open it up and it'll tell you the exact email addresses. Another of our lovely terms is smishing. Smishing is phishing using SMS. Now, this is one of the reasons why if ever you get a notification to update your phone or any of your devices, update it, get the latest security. There was a security vulnerability within Apple iOS just over 2 years ago now, and it allowed an attacker to send an SMS. Now, we did this live on stage as a demonstration, and I phoned up my boss and convinced him that it was in his best interest to click on a link in an SMS I was sending him. What I told him was that it would be beneficial to his business and we'd get free advertising. That's how you're going to get salesmen every time. The moment he clicked on the link that we'd sent him in the SMS, a virus was installed on his phone. That virus gave the attacker, who in this case was one of my penetration testers, it gave that attacker access to all his SMSs, all his contact details, and we were even able to turn off and on his camera remotely. So do not click on things that you don't know within text messages. Be careful and make sure your phone is updated. Quick update on the phishing general rules. If you get something suspicious, think about your suspicions, act on your suspicions, and apply caution. Send that email to your IT team if you've got one so that they can analyze it. The same with links within there or with attachments. If you have any suspicions, do not click on a link and do not click on an attachment. Even just clicking when you receive one of these emails that comes up and the graphics haven't opened and there's a little red cross in a box that is going to be a graphic, don't click on that box and say download graphics unless you are absolutely confident that this is a genuine business email. Just doing that sends a notification back to the person who sent the email that you have interacted with it, so they now know they've got an email address that is monitored and is being responded to, so they can now formulate a different type of attack, particularly against you. Life wouldn't be life at the moment without social networking. Social networking is creeping more and more into our business activities as well. Using your work accounts for personal purposes is not a good idea. You don't want to associate a private account with your work account. Try and keep the two separate. Use different emails and certainly never use the same passwords that you would use at work. Think before you communicate any information. Are you going to be seen as speaking on behalf of your organization? Are you a public spokesperson who's allowed to give information on behalf of the company? Be careful. Posting photographs. There's a lot of examples where photographs have contained information that really shouldn't have been there. Photographs may have people in them that don't like to be on social networking. They don't want to be there. So be careful what you post. Using social media too often in the office will get you noticed. Most organizations have lawful monitoring in place and they will know how regularly social media is being used. So here's an example of a photograph that was taken of Prince William. This is quite a famous one. It's a few years old now. It was taken by his publicity manager. And if you look carefully, there is a sign on the wall in the background that gives the username and the password for one of the computer systems within the emergency helicopter team. It's so easy to make that sort of mistake when you are publishing photographs from a work environment. They had appalling security by putting the username and password on there in the first place, but then made it worse by putting it in every newspaper and every social media site. Wireless security. Now, Wi-Fi has become one of our Maslow hierarchy of needs now. Wi-Fi and battery we cannot seem to survive without. And wireless is provided free in so many places, often in bus stations, train stations, airports, hotels. Everybody knows that you can go to McDonald's and get free Wi-Fi. But are you giving something else away when you are getting free Wi-Fi? Now, I have a toy that my penetration testers use, and it's called a pineapple. And I can sit just outside McDonald's on one of the tables, and my pineapple is set up so if someone comes in and their mobile phone is looking to connect to something called McDonald's, because they've been there before, my device will try and get there first and go, yep, I'm McDonald's, connect to me. Your phone will automatically connect to us without you having done anything at all, and now we're intercepting everything that you're transmitting, every username, every password, everything that goes through. So just so that you know as well, When you go to McDonald's or anywhere where there's free Wi-Fi, use the free Wi-Fi. There is a function on your phone that says forget this network. When you leave, you should forget this network. If you don't, then for the rest of the time, whenever your phone, for the rest of the phone's life, whenever your phone has no Wi-Fi, it's there shouting, hey, McDonald's, connect to me. I need some Wi-Fi. Airport, come on, give me some Wi-Fi. I need a connection. This is one of the reasons why sometimes when you've been out of range for a while, you get your phone out, the phone battery is much lower than you expected, and it's warm. It's actually warming your pocket up because it's spending all that time calling for a Wi-Fi connection. Be careful who you connect to. Hotels are another one which is particularly needs to have caution applied. Think before you do it. You don't have to stop using them altogether, but think and do this smartly. So working remotely is something that's happened a lot this year. A lot of us have had to change the way our business runs and the way we operate within the business. COVID has forced many of us to work from a home location or an alternative location. So when working remotely, there's a lot of things that we need to consider to make sure that we're maintaining the same levels of security as when we're working from home. First of all, using a VPN, a virtual private network. If your organization has a VPN, then use it. If they don't have a VPN, suggest they look into implementing one. VPN provides an encrypted tunnel between you and the organization's computer systems. This gives all your communications protection as they're crossing the internet to get to do your business work. VPN can be quite important, and it can be a very, very good security control. Using a password manager. If I talk to your average 11 or 12-year-old these days and ask them how many different accounts they've got for online things, I'm going to get an answer between 8 and 10 at that age. For us, it's sometimes a ridiculous number. I could not tell you how many online accounts I have for different things, but I use a password manager tool. The password manager sits on my phone, sits on my laptop, and they synchronize. I don't need to remember all the passwords. The password manager will do that for me. Now, there's an awful lot of different types of password managers out there. Speak to your IT team, find out which one they recommend. If you send a question, ask me the one I'm using, I will. I'm not here to advertise anything at all, though. The password manager, it doesn't just help you remember the passwords, it helps you use strong passwords, so it increases the level of security. The passwords I use these days, I couldn't even pronounce, let alone remember. And they're usually around 15 characters long and full of all sorts of symbols, totally unpronounceable. But the fact that the password manager has got them means I don't need to remember. All I need to remember is the very long, complex password that I have set up to access the password manager in the first place. Whatever your device, when working remotely, make sure your devices, laptops, tablets, phones are updated. When you get these update announcements, install the updates as soon as possible. Those updates are providing patches for security loopholes more than anything else, and it's well worth having those installed on your devices. Find out what the backup process is for your organization. Most organizations, your laptops are not backed up. So when you're working remotely, there's more temptation to store things on the laptop itself. Try to avoid that. Save information on the areas within your computer system that are being backed up. Or speak to your IT team and find out how you back up your own device. Something whenever you're traveling, have a think about who can see what you're doing on your device. If you're in a train station or an airport, who can see over your shoulder? At home, have you got your laptop next to a window where the neighbors may be able to see or people walking past? Think about who can see your device and protect the information on your screen. At home, secure media, USBs, removable hard drives, hard copy information. You need to protect it exactly as if you were in the office. It's still susceptible. We do not want some stranger coming into your house, an electrician or something, who's able to view company information. I've already covered thinking before you connect with the Wi-Fi. Secure devices and information. If you've got the ability, lock up your work laptop at home when you're not using it. The same with your papers. Treat it as you would in the office. You wouldn't leave things out on the desk in the office, I hope. So don't do it at home. Protect business information. Your business is entrusting this information to you from a remote location. So think security. Make sure you're protecting everything that you've been given. Cloud and shadow IT. So shadow IT is a term that the IT fraternity use to identify the types of usually cloud services or other IT that users are using unofficially. Apple Cloud, Messenger, Google Docs, Dropbox, anything you're using that, think very, very carefully before you use it. Some of you may have used a tool called Prezi, and Prezi helps you to create fantastic presentations with great graphics and almost cartoon-like presence. But if you're using the free version of Prezi and a lot of other free tools as well, read the fine print carefully. When you're installing it and you click next, 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 finished, one of those next said, I give you ownership of all information put into presentations when I'm creating them. You are giving away the ownership of your information, so be careful. Coming to the last few slides now. Have a look at the personal privacy settings on your social networking. These get updated regularly. Make sure you know who you're sharing things with. This is the same with LinkedIn as it is with Facebook, as it is with, I hate to say it, TikTok and others. Look at the settings, make sure you follow them. Use good password. The password is the most secure component in our IT operations. There are very, very simple rules. Never share the passwords, never write them down. Don't tell anybody what your password is. Keep them complex, change them frequently, and use a password manager. I think this is my last slide. Something that I've been asked a number of times is how I prioritize cybersecurity within an organization. So I put this down to what I tend to refer to as the $10 test. When I'm looking, if I only have $10 to spend on information security, how am I going to split that $10 up? I'm going to spend $4 on security awareness training, empowering your employees to understand security more than doubles the size of your security team. You get far more payback per buck with security awareness than anything else. Security monitoring, I would spend $3 on. One of the most appalling statistics on the internet is that the average global difference in time between an attack happening and an organization finding out they've been attacked is 197 days. That's an appalling statistic. Having security monitoring within your organization will help you find out the day it happens and help you to block. $2 will go on security technology, the firewalls, the other things that are absolutely necessary, and I will spend my last dollar getting quality cyber liability insurance. Thank you very much for your time. Peter, back to you. Oh, do you want to cover that one?
No, you go ahead.
One last thing before I go. If you've never seen this website before, use this website, type in your email address and find out how many times your email address has been in one of those security breaches, like the LinkedIn breach, the Yahoo breach, and so on. Do not use the password function. I'm not recommending that to anybody at all. But put your emails in, put your kids' emails in. Do not worry if you've been breached. Mine comes up to tell me that I've been in 3 breaches. That just empowers me to know that those passwords I used then are never to be used again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Don't go. Just on a lighter note, I'd have to say, I don't think I'll ever be able to use BCC again now that you've called it backstab carbon copy, because when I think about it, you're quite right, it is just that. I've breached probably every one of those rules that you've mentioned, you know, and the ideas of that LinkedIn password, check my email to see what rules have been superimposed on there, hover over the link. They're all really good things that I'll certainly take away. I suppose the question for me is, how do we, most of the people on this webinar are coming from their own organisations or businesses. Are there ways that we can continue to drive that awareness? And I notice that's your top spend. I know of a couple of places that actually send out emails that are sort of dummy test cases to try and just say, you know, did you open this email? Is that a good way to do it?
Phishing tests are a very good way of doing it. But having some form of security awareness, having instructor led is by far the best way, because the attendees can ask questions. But there's a lot of video cybersecurity awareness out there that could be used to help educate staff. The sending emails around to notify people, absolutely essential, but be careful. I'm one of the few people that enjoy security. Security bores most people. And if they receive too many security emails, they will switch off and they'll stop paying attention to them. So there is a very fine balance in there, but keep people aware.
Yeah, and then, so the other thing that got me was the free wireless and that sort of thing. Should you just sort of set yourself some, you know, should a business set themselves, you know, 10 rules? You shall not do this with our computers. You know, you shall not use free wireless or things like that. Is there that sort of information we could distribute to our clients?
Every part of security comes back to a risk assessment. If the business takes a risk assessment, how much damage could it cause if someone went to McDonald's, used their Wi-Fi? If they think that impact is too great on the business, then absolutely set a rule, have a policy in place. Good governance will help a great deal.
Well, that's basic risk management, isn't it? Identify the risk.
And whether it's finance or security.
Yeah, either mitigate it or treat it or, yeah. Okay,
cool.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Formally, thank you, Steve. That was terrific and exactly what we're after. The first step is just to make everybody aware and to start thinking and as you say, then to start to do your risk assessments and take necessary action. Unfortunately, the thing that follows from a cyber attack can be a claim. And I think that's the perfect segue into Phil Smith, who's the Cyber and Technology Practice Leader for Victoria, WA and South Australia for Chubb Insurance. And Phil's kindly agreed to give us some real examples of how these cyber attacks can come through to a claim and perhaps what lessons could be learned from looking back at claims and seeing how could we have avoided this. So I'll hand over to Phil. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. Very excited to be part of this EBM presentation and talk to you specifically, obviously, about cyber claims. I'll run you through some examples, some common cyber misconceptions that we commonly run into, or kind of common cyber speed bumps, as I like to call them. I'll run you through some cyber scenarios, as well as some cyber statistics, and then quickly touch on the actual services and the product offering from an insurance perspective. Next slide, please. So the common cyber misconceptions that you can see up here on the screen, we've limited them to 7 for the point of this presentation, but in reality, there are actually a huge number more common cyber speed bumps. These are common misconceptions that we run into when we're speaking to our insureds, to potential clients around cyber. And it's also common misconceptions, feedback that we've had from a number of brokers that we speak to. I won't speak to all of them, but I'll run through a couple of them now. A very common one that we run into is the statement that our IT system cannot be breached or hacked. Unfortunately, this is definitely not the case. If you have any type of network that is, internet facing, you have the ability to be hacked. When I'm talking about hackers, I'm not talking about that kind of stereotypical image of a teenager sitting in a hoodie, hacking into a system. I'm talking about sophisticated state-sponsored actors. Typically these hackers are extensions of governments. Whilst we go to work, I go to work and, I underwrite insurance. These professionals go to work and they hack. That's what they do. If they want to, they will find a way into your system. As Steve also mentioned during his presentation, an incredibly easy way to breach or get into somebody else's system is simply by using their username and their password. So unfortunately, every IT system has the ability to be able to be breached or hacked. Our IT employees consultants will be able to take care of it. Our IT employees and consultants do a fantastic job at the actual configuration of the network. So what makes up the network itself, being able to assist in bringing employees onto that network, setting them up so their computers work, passwords, things like that. They may also be involved in, implementing some security measures, things like antivirus and, malware protection. Their job is not to fight or defend against a sophisticated cyber attack. It's so important that when a suspected or actual cyber incident occurs, the professionals are brought in. I'm talking about IT forensics. They're able to do a deep dive into the system to see exactly what has been accessed, what potential issues there are, if any data has been stolen. And also importantly, if there's been a ransomware attack, you need professionals that have the prior knowledge and experience of actually negotiating that ransom payment and negotiating, getting the encryption key back for the insured, for the client, to make sure that they can effectively get their business back up and running. I don't hold valuable data. Steve spoke to this in his presentation. All data, no matter how big or how small it is, holds value. I've read a number of articles recently, and it touches on the fact that now in 2020, data or personally identifiable information is a more valuable commodity, is a more profitable commodity than oil. That is massive. I don't hold valuable data. Even if you don't think that you store, personally identifiable information, realistically, you will hold sensitive information on all of your employees, in all of your, email inboxes. You may also have contracts that sit on your system with specific key clients as well. All of this information is incredibly valuable in the wrong hands. Next slide, please. Large losses making the headlines. So traditionally, Australia has weathered the cyberstorm, I'll say relatively well. And particularly in the SME and in the mid-market space, a number of clients have said that they don't feel that they actually have any exposure. A number of the claims examples that we do run through have historically been out of Europe and out of the US. Unfortunately, Australia is very much in the crosshairs, and we are seeing a huge increase in the number of claims. All of these screenshots here are taken from publicly available information, so mainly news reports. But as you can see here, some big names this year have all been targeted. Toll, for instance, has had 2 significant ransomware attacks. It significantly impacted its logistics supply chain, and ultimately it led to a number of the contracts that they had in place with key customers, their customers actually needing to go to their competitors to be able to source the products. BlueScope Steel was hit again by another ransomware attack. It severely impacted a number of its different operations straight away. As we can imagine, that had an almost immediate impact on its financial balance sheet. Down the bottom, Optus is facing a class action over alleged customer privacy breaches. This ties back to a alleged data breach in which personally identifiable information was released out into the market. And in the middle there, you can see that the New South Wales Ambulance Service won $275,000 as a class action payment. This ties back to actually a 2013 data breach. As you can see, these are all publicly available, but unfortunately we are seeing a significant increase in cyber claims. Next slide, please. So looking at a quick Chubb claims update. Unfortunately, as we touched on before, we are seeing a huge increase in cyber claims. We were seeing this, the increase prior to COVID. And as Steve touched on in his presentation, COVID has absolutely led to an increased spike. And I would imagine that, with the majority of offices moving back into some, rotation system back into the office environment, that we will also see a further spike there, particularly when you have, bring your own devices or personal devices that are being connected to the work networks. So just as a quick breakdown here by industry and incident type, it's fascinating, or I find it fascinating to look at, for example, the industry type, how you can see that there is a relatively healthy and even spread across every industry and occupation. The top 5, the reason why they're being targeted, we're talking about professional services, healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, and retail. The reason behind that is, as we touched on before, is due to the type of data and the personally identifiable information that they hold. When you think about it, a healthcare practitioner, they will have, my name, they'll have details on my health records, blood types, address, possibly how I paid for appointments. Similar for retail, a number of retailers have loyalty programs in place whereby they collect a huge amount of personally identifiable information on you. Unfortunately, this is why these main industries are being targeted. In regards to the incident type, you can see there the business email compromise and ransomware are by far and away the largest 2 contributors. But very interestingly to see that all of the other factors there are slowly on the increase as well. The attackers are getting more and more sophisticated. Next slide, please. So when talking to EBM about purchasing cyber insurance, it's really important to also, ask EBM in regards to, what is the insurer's cyber offering? What do I mean by that? Is it's not just the promise of a good policy wording and paying claims when you need it most. The majority of cyber insurers out there will also provide additional services, one being the incident response service, and one being, access to additional vendors or third parties to assist you in, educating your staff or improving your network systems. I'll quickly run you through the incident response process. So ultimately, it's what to do, who to call, how to get help when you have some type of suspected or actual incident. The Chubb process is a 6-step process. Sorry, if we can just go back 1 slide, just very quickly. So just quickly running you through the 6 steps at the moment. So step number 1, the client suffers a suspected or actual incident. It leads into step number 2, whereby they reach out by one of 3 ways. They can reach out via the internet, via the phone, or via the Chubb Cyber Alert app. It's a free download on the App Store and on Google Play. And we always recommend that you reach out via the app, just because realistically, in the event of a cyber attack, you might not actually be able to use the internet. And chances are, if your phones are similar to Chubb's phone, they're actually connected to the internet as well. So either calling via a mobile or reaching out via the app will be the best ways to reach out. Next slide, please. It will lead into step number 3, which is within 1 minute of that initial reach out for help, you'll receive contact from the Chubb Cyber Incident Response Centre. They will ask 3 questions. Who are you? Where are you? And what do you think has happened? They will then collect this information, and that will lead into step number 4, where they pass that information to our Incident Response Manager. The Incident Response Manager that we use is Clyde & Co, a legal firm, and they will be able to work with and coordinate all of the, say, additional third-party vendors that may need to be brought in to assist in, working out exactly what has happened, but then guiding you through that process to make sure that you can continue to operate, but to make sure that you've met all of your, legislative requirements in the different jurisdictions in which you operate. That leads into step number 5 and step number 6, the recovery and the follow-up, which is obviously absolutely crucial. The recovery, Clyde & Co will continue to work with you to make sure that the initial responses put into place is the best response and the most correct response. Cyber claims can manifest over time, so it is really important that, if tweaks need to be made, that they are. The follow-up report will be a report of what went right, what went wrong, and obviously ways for improvement. That then leads into the next slide, please. Which, as I mentioned before, a number of insurers, Chubb included, will provide access to a number of third-party vendors that we have partnered with. We have agreed rates and preferred rates with all of these vendors. I'm not going to go through, obviously, all of them in detail, but it is really important to realize that, insurers can assist and really help. For example, up on the screen, a number of these vendors can assist with, legislative requirements across different jurisdictions. They can assist with, password management controls, such as Steve spoke about in his presentation. They can assist with providing, employee education, phishing trainings, or they can come in and they can run an audit on your networks. Please make sure to, reach out obviously via EBM and ask any questions around this, because it is really important to realize that, the insurance offering is developing as the cyber claims environment is developing, and cyber insurers are there to partner with you and assist you through that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. That was a terrific presentation, and I think, again, in the same way as Steve, it's just thought-provoking and get your mind racing. Once I got past you're quite right, the hackers, I think, have come out from under their hoodie and are all walks of life, and that's probably all part of the problem. The overwhelming thing that I've got out of all of this is this is a very holistic solution that we need to bring to the table. We need to be better at our awareness. We need to be better at our identification, and then our risk strategies to deal with these risks and mitigate these risks. Phil, you've shown why we need insurance, and that incident response process that you went through there. I can just see how that would be a benefit, because I think one of the last things you said, this is an evolving situation and we're all becoming much more aware of what's involved. And I think to have some support to lead us through the claim is a terrific thing. And that's one of the things we'd like to do at EBM. We'd like to surround ourselves with experts, the Chubb Insurance Solution, Steve and ES2, to be able to bring that holistic expertise to the table, and then we can customize something for our clients, because it's such an important area and it's an unknown. We're better at dealing with fires, and we're better at dealing with injury claims. There's so much unknown about cyber, and I think we just can't be careful enough. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Phil, for terrific presentations. I've realised we're right on 1 hour. So we won't keep our guests any longer, except to say thank you very much for joining. We hope you've gained some benefit from it, and please reach out to us if you'd like to go further, particularly with either of our two speakers, because that's part of what we'd like to do today, is introduce experts to people to our clients who need some more dedicated and specific advice that we can match in, and we can make sure that the insurance solution and the risk management solution are all working together to get the best outcome. So once again, thank you very much. Please enjoy your day, and thank you for joining.